My ex-husband's new wife called me 3 weeks ago and said she just realized her daughter's birthday was on my week. She asked me to please bring my son to the party or drop him off the night before, and they'd bring him back the following day. She was very entitled about it. She presented me with 2 options when I didn't have to do either. I said I'd think about it, and she got huffy and said that he had to be at his little sister's party. I again said I would think about it, and she continued to argue, so I hung up. Finally, the day before the party, I asked my son, "Do you want to go to Sister's Name's birthday party?" He said he did, so I texted her to tell her we would be there and asked her about the time of the party. She told me it was at noon. So we got there at 12:30, and there were no other cars, which was weird. When we went inside, my ex said he needed to talk to me, and I said that wasn't necessary and asked where the party guests were. He said he needed to prepare me before I saw his wife. I said, "Why, is she pregnant or something?" He said she was, and I just rolled my eyes and again asked where the party guests were. He said that the party was at 2, but they wanted to ensure I had time to put myself together before the party. I told him he needed to quit the soap opera drama because I didn't have time for it. I took time out of my day to accommodate them, but they blew it. I'm not hanging out with them in an empty house for over an hour, and I'm not wasting gas to leave and return. I took my son to the park, and we had a nice day, but my ex texted me a bunch about how I was punishing his daughter for his wife's pregnancy. I don't care that his wife is pregnant. My only response was a text that said, "Grow up." My son asked about his sister's birthday, and I said that there was a mix-up with the party time, which is true, and his dad's family and he will have to all celebrate together when he's at his dad's next time. So he was chill. My mom said that I hurt the birthday girl, but she's a toddler. She's not going to notice who's at her party. My mom told me to be the bigger person, but I feel there's a limit to that. I wouldn't reward the lying and trickery my ex did any more than I would reward it if my young son did it. Am I the idiot for leaving the birthday party and not coming back? So wait, your ex intentionally kept the actual time from you so you would show up early, and all that just so he can tell you about the pregnancy in person and give you time to put yourself together afterward as if it's some life-shattering news to you. What? Heck no, you're not the idiot. He really seems to love drama. I'd like to know what kind of reaction they wanted. You sobbing on the floor while they can be the bigger person and comfort you? And later they'll tell everyone how hard it hit you and how nice they are for being there for you. Whatever weird kind of dream they had about this didn't work. They could have been normal and told you the actual time. It was already nice of you to bring your son during your parenting time. I would have told them that they could drive if they wanted him to join during your time. People don't get to blame the victim of a failed trap for not falling for the trap. They messed around and found out. They were trying to create drama. Who wants to go to their ex's house and sit for 2 hours? This is on them. If they were so concerned about your reaction, they could have just told you at any time before the party, instead orchestrating a plan for you to show up and have time to feel your feelings. You took your kid to the park and had some fun. I say good for you. I think the ex actually wanted to hurt her versus somehow protect her. Seems like he wanted to see her be emotional and upset. If someone was trying to spare feelings, they'd text about it beforehand and let OP process it on her own. Hence the joke's on them, since OP clearly couldn't care less about it. Yep, they lied and manipulated you. If you have a legal custody agreement, stick to it. Maybe get one of those apps that are court approved for the contact between parents. Tell your mother that sometimes being the bigger person allows bullies to continue to be bullies. Don't allow toxicity in your life. This whole thing is exhausting. You're all idiots and must learn to behave appropriately to put your child before everything else. This isn't about you and your ex. It's about your child. You both need to be more accommodating. At one point or another in the next 12 plus years, you'll both need favors from each other for your child. Figure out how to be peaceful for the child. It's not about you. My ex and I have 2 children together. We do it for the kids, not us. You don't have to be friends, but you'll both get better results, and life will be easier being nice and doing things you don't have to do. I'm the single mom of 3 kids, Polly, teen female, Trevor, tween male, and Cassie, pre-tween female. I have little to no support. Their father left after Cassie was born, and there was no family nearby, etc. I have 2 sitters that I can call on as needed, and I use them before I'd ever ask Polly for help. I don't want her to miss out on her teenage years. Before this incident, I only ever asked her to babysit once because I had no one else, and I paid her $15 an hour, at the time above minimum wage. This past Saturday, Polly was due to hang out with some friends. For a couple of days, Trevor was ill. He spiked a high fever that day, and I had to take him to the ER. I asked Polly to watch Cassie as the sitters weren't responding. I apologized that she'd have to miss out on time with her friends, but I said I'd pay her, and she could even have her friends over at our place. Polly pitched a fit and asked why I couldn't send Cassie to the neighbors. We don't know them. They moved in last month and outside waving when we got our mail. I don't have a relationship with them. Polly was irritated. I told her I'd pay her $18 an hour and that I had to go. I take Trevor to the ER, and we must wait a bit. Polly kept asking if the sitters had responded, and they hadn't. Eventually, it was our time to be seen, so I told Polly I'd be out of reach for a bit. It turns out Trevor had a bad case of RSV, and due to the pre-existing health problems, he had to be admitted for the night. I was terrified. When I called Polly to update her, I heard people talking in the background and said, "Oh, you had your friends come over?" She told me no. She dropped Cassie at the neighbors and went out. I was furious. I told her to go home and get her sister. I didn't ask for the neighbor's number, but she didn't even ask for it, which I get teenage logic, but still. At first, Polly refused until I told her she was grounded. I made her FaceTiming when she got home and show that Cassie was with her. Eventually, my mom could make the 2-hour drive down to stay with the girls, but I told her not to let Polly leave the house. The next day, Trevor and I were able to go home. I lectured Polly about what she did and grounded her for 2 weeks. She got mad at me and said that I couldn't expect her to drop her plans. I pointed out I never do, but this was an emergency, and her brother was sick. She told me that's not her problem. She's also mad because I won't pay her. I apologized profusely to the neighbor, who said it was okay and that he would have called me, but Polly didn't even leave my number either. Polly said I overreacted. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. This was an extreme emergency situation, and Polly acted selfishly and irresponsibly. As an added bonus, she left a young child with strangers and exposed them to an unknown illness. Also, considering how the folks around her were sick, it should be common courtesy in sense not to want to expose her friends as well. She's old enough to comprehend how terrible and dangerous her actions were, but instead doubled down on being petulant. Not my kid, but Polly earns a hefty punishment and consequences. Exactly. I think 2 weeks is not enough of a punishment for this. I would be livid that my oldest child couldn't be trusted to adequately care for her siblings for such a short amount of time in an emergency. I have no idea what they would need to do. Probably do community service in a related area for a while. This might be a good idea. Part of her punishment should be watching documentation on the dangers of trusting strangers or people you don't know with your kids, especially ones that center around teenagers who dump their siblings off on someone like that. Hopefully, it would open her eyes to the dangers she could possibly put her sister in. She doesn't watch true crime stories, or she would never have done that. She was irresponsible and deserved to be grounded. I feel for you, and I hope you don't have to go through this again. I will preface this by saying that my mother treated my sister and me differently. I was always less than her, and she could do no wrong. She'd always buy my sister everything she wanted, while I wore her hand-me-downs. I moved out at 18, worked through college, went no contact with my mom, and low contact with my sister, and our paths diverged significantly from there. I now work in a field that pays well, while she's a stay-at-home mom. I guess I never quite got over this, and while I know the main idiot is my mother, and my sister didn't know any better, I still fester negative feelings towards both of them. I found Tom in a bag as a newborn kitten. He was the only one still alive, and I raised him over the summer break when I was 13. Then when school started, my mother got rid of him, and I had to go to great and extreme lengths to find out where she dumped him. Took me a week to find him, and we've been together ever since. For a few months, Tom hasn't really been okay and has slowly been declining. The vet, however, based on our recent blood panel, was confident that he still has some life left to live and said that he's by far the healthiest geriatric cat she's seen in a while. Thus, we decided to try out some surgery to improve his quality of life, even though he's 21. This surgery comes with a price tag. I'm not in the US, but it's around 3 months' worth of minimum wage in my country. It won't set us back much, hardly an inconvenience, but we'll be frugal just in case complications happen. He's scheduled for Monday, fingers crossed. Anyway, my sister dropped by on Sunday, which was strange. We haven't spoken since she messaged me a Merry Christmas GIF on Facebook. Looks like her husband jumped onto the NFT bandwagon and they're broke and a few months behind on the mortgage, and she asked if I could help her out with the payments since they're at risk of becoming homeless. I said I was sorry she was going through this, but this was not a good time for me either, and I listed the reasons above. I don't want to ever be in a situation where my cat's life depends on $100 that I cannot afford to pay. I suggested she get a job and maybe downsize or move in with our mother while they get back up on their feet. She didn't take this well, called me names and a crazy cat lady that's going to end up alone, plus some other nice words. I kicked her out. My mother and other relatives have been spamming me throughout the week for being heartless and caring more about an animal than my own flesh and blood. My husband says I could have just given her some cash to avoid the drama, and he's right, I could have. This is why I felt like I might be the idiot. In the end, the main reason I chose not to help was due to my childhood baggage. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. My mother and relatives have been spamming me for being heartless and caring more about an animal than my own flesh and blood. There's a reason why you go low contact with a lot of your family. They all think they're entitled to your help. Also, what's stopping your mom and these other family members from helping your sister out? OP, block these people and go no contact with your sister. You have something going on that requires a lot of money. You can't afford to pay your sister's mortgage simultaneously. You offered multiple solutions on how they can get themselves out of this mess they've made, and none of that was good enough. Their mistakes are not yours to fix. Pro tip: no is a complete sentence. Bonus pro tip: life is hard enough. Don't pick up baggage that's not yours. Funny how family members only come out of the woodwork when they need money. You don't owe them anything, and your sister can get a job. Take care of your cat. He was there for you, and you should be there for him. My husband has a daughter with another woman who was conceived when our relationship was open. Unfortunately, we only learned about her when my stepdaughter was a toddler, and her mother's been a headache to deal with from the start. She's even gone so far as to encourage my stepdaughter to misbehave when she's at ours. We have her 1 weekend a month, but my husband was going to be away on a business trip when she was supposed to be with us. I decided it would be best if my stepdaughter stayed with her mother instead of me while my husband was gone for several reasons. Her behavior is a lot worse whenever my husband isn't around, as she doesn't think she has to listen to me, and she's extremely rude to our nanny. Our oldest and her constantly fight, which isn't something I wanted to deal with. Lastly, her mother's made it clear in the past that she doesn't want her daughter left alone with me, so I thought this was the perfect solution to keep everybody happy. My husband was fine with it, and he informed my stepdaughter's mother. That Friday, I only asked our nanny to collect my son from school, as I assumed her mother would collect her since she'd be staying with her. She wasn't picked up on time, and her mother called me furious that we had left her there. She tried to make me go and collect her, but I refused. So now she's accusing me of trying to isolate her daughter from her siblings and of being a nasty stepmother. She couldn't get in contact with my husband, so she called his family to try to make me look bad and to force me to take my stepdaughter during my husband's time with her, even though he wasn't there. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Why is this even a question? She was informed you weren't picking up the daughter. Why would you pick up the daughter in that circumstance? If you had picked up the daughter, she would have probably accused you of something else. It sounds like she just wants to create drama. You definitely shouldn't have your husband's child when he's not around, when the child has expressed that they don't like you and her mother's uncomfortable with it. It's also not your responsibility to sort out pickup arrangements for a child that isn't yours. Your husband's an idiot for not making this time to see his daughter. 1 weekend a month isn't difficult, and for clearly not communicating his plan to his baby's mama. What a horrible situation. I'm sorry, but your husband randomly impregnates women, and then the two of you acting like the child is some demonic burden is just sickening. Not picking up the kid wasn't necessarily wrong because you assumed her mom had arranged to pick her up, and how she reacted was wrong. But seriously, your attitude and how you talk about the child are really telling. If you can't have control over your jealousy and take out your bad feelings on a literal child, you shouldn't have made some ridiculous arrangement with your husband. Sounds like you both suck and can't handle the consequences of your stupid decisions. I, female 27, am white, and my husband, 30, is Mexican. We have an infant who looks exactly like my husband did when he was a baby, but with paler skin. He has the same dark brown curly hair and dark brown eyes. My mom loves my husband and son, and she's always supported our relationship. But recently, she's commented about my son looking nothing like me. She says things like, "It's too bad he doesn't look more like you, and you can't even tell that he's your son." We gave our son a Hispanic name, Mateo, but we sometimes call him Matty. So my mom always says, "You should have just named him Matthew," which is just the white version of his name. So I usually just ignore it until she said, "He already looks Mexican and has a Mexican last name, so the least you could have done was given him a white name." And so I finally snapped. She flipped out and got super defensive. She said that she just wanted him to look more like me because I'm beautiful. I told her that my son was perfect the way he was. I understand her wanting my son to look like me, but she specifically said that she had a problem with him looking Mexican and having a Mexican name. But I know that it's more than that. She just wants him to look white. Am I the idiot for yelling at my mom? Not the idiot. And you're right. Your son is perfect the way he is. Your mother's risking her relationship with her grandson by not appreciating him, and that's nobody's fault but hers. You did the right thing to stick up for your son, and I'm sure your husband also appreciates it. Also, Mateo is a beautiful name. She just wants you to do things the white way. I mean, the right way. Ha ha. All jokes aside, she's definitely the idiot. Also, he's only a baby. There's a lot of growing to do. Who knows what features of yours will look more prominent as he ages? I gave birth to my baby daughter 6 months ago. She looks nothing like me, so I tell people who comment on her looks that my husband cheated and she may not be mine.